everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of She-Hulk. We're tackling Episode 7, The Retreat. Really looking forward to this chat. Of course, joining me, as always, my fabulous guests with their weekly insight. We're starting, of course, with From Enchantment of Eternity, Mark!
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here, and I am not a matador, so don't call me one. Anyway, always good to be here talking about this latest episode of She-Hulk.
Excellent, excellent. And, of course, from Alyssa Jean's reviews, it is Alyssa herself, Alyssa Jean.
Hi, thanks for having me again. Looking forward to talking about this episode.
Excellent, excellent. I want to be sure to thank everybody joining us in the chat, everyone joining us in the archives. Hope you enjoy our little discussion. But let's just kind of jump right in. You know, we've been having, I don't know, Mark, a few differing opinions on episodes throughout all of this. We could almost like a quantum entanglement pair. If you knew one of our opinions, you would know the other ones. And I'm thinking this week maybe we could all just come together a little bit. I really enjoyed this episode. This is going to be awesome then. Folks, we always have such good entertainment here. All right, well, let us kick things. Well, I will kick things off then, because I did really enjoy this episode. To me, it was one of the better ones. I love the more direct story. I liked the interchange between all of the characters. And I think it did set us up nicely for our final two episodes coming up. So this was kind of a plus side. On my view. Mark, dun, 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 dun. What did you think of this week's episode?
Sorry, I lost my mess. All right, so this episode, I didn't hate it, but I thought it was okay. I kind of feel like the show overall has lost quality. Like it had me for the first 4 episodes, and now I'm kind of less interested in it. I thought to me it was your typical, sitcom type episode and making fun of the whole self-help group. And I kind of felt like I was really frustrated because it was freaking obvious what the deal with Josh was from the very beginning. And the fact they had that scene at the end, like, this is the big reveal. I'm like, no shit. Like, I figured it out forever ago. And so I thought that was a bit frustrating. And most of the humor I thought was just kind of bland, and I didn't really care about all these, C-lister superhero cameos or whatever. So I don't know. This one, it didn't really do it for me. I didn't think, like I said though, I didn't think it sucked, but it kind of felt like a filler episode for me.
Mando, El Aguilar, C-listers, they wish they were C-listers, D-listers at best.
Yeah,
I think.
Thanks for the correction.
Alyssa, what did you think of this week's entry? You get to be the deciding factor here. Good or bad?
I get to break the tie, and today I am on Team Darren. I thought this episode was actually pretty hilarious. I thought the comic timing all throughout was wonderful. I love the interchange between all the characters. I think it's one of the funnier episodes of the season. And I like how, has anyone else noticed that Tim Roth is basically doing a Taika Waititi impression? Like, he's doing a Korg impression for Amelia Blonsky. Like, I swear, if I closed my eyes, I would just think it was Korg talking. And it's got the same, like, tones and inflections, vocal inflections. It sounds just like him to me, which I actually love a lot because I love Korg's voice, and I think it works so well for this character in this role. I loved this episode. I do have one complaint in it. It's similar to Mark's complaint in that I didn't like the Josh reveal. Not just because it was really obvious. I said that last week when they showed the scene at the end of last week's episode. I'm like, I got the impression that Josh is working for the bad guys and he's just trying to get her blood. But not just because it was so obvious. It's because I really wanted to win for Jen. I want Jen to get a win at some point. I don't want her to turn into one of those perpetual loser characters like the classic Charlie Brown from the Peanuts, or I don't know if you all watched the Drew Carey show in the 90s, the Drew Carey character, who that show was on for years and years, and he never, ever got a win. He was just a perpetual loser, and it was always depressing. And I don't like that. I don't think it's very good writing or very good storytelling. So I still need Jen to get some kind of win in her social life by the end of the season, even if she doesn't have to have a boyfriend. But just, I don't know, it's kind of just too depressing. Like, it's too much for me. That is where I have a complaint. But the season can be saved in that regard if they give her some sort of win in the next couple episodes. Maybe she'll, find romance with Matt Murdock. Who knows? I don't know. But that would be the only downside for me. Otherwise, I really loved this episode quite a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, maybe you can find someone with a lawyer that also appreciates justice out there. And we may have a little hint of how that might actually come together, I think, drop in this episode too. But let's kind of get in with things, because yeah, the whole setup, and obviously a great takeover from last week, is the dating of Josh and Jen. Which I kind of enjoyed the first time I watched it. I really enjoyed the second time I watched it. It was reasonably quick. It was a nice, cute tale. It does tug on the strings of like, God, is this real? That would be great because, like you said, Alyssa, we want Jen to have a win. And I got to say, I actually love one of the whole opening bits when she's getting ready and comes out and she's in the dress, and we get to see her in multiple stages of her afternoon as she's getting ready, several Jens on the screen at the time. I thought was a really just kind of fun way to tell that story and keep things moving very well. So I really kind of enjoyed that. I did think that they were very cute. And I will say, part of me hoped after the whole, post-coital quietness, maybe Josh was kidnapped. Maybe that's the secret thing. He got nabbed in the morning leaving. But you're right. This was all kind of pretty expected. But I think they set it up nicely, as well as her dealing with do you text or do you not text, which I think is a very universal, timeless tale right there. But Alyssa, let's start with you. What did you think of our kind of opening bit and the setup and the whole Josh kind of the romance part of the episode?
Yeah, that worked well for me. I can't remember what song they were playing. It was not one I was familiar with, but it was one that worked really well for that opening sequence. Yeah, even knowing that most likely Josh is working for the bad guys, I mean, it was very kind of sitcom-y, but I liked it for that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that opening sequence myself. No, let's hear Mr. Negativity up there.
Actually, I'm not going to be too negative about this opening scene because I liked it too. Like it also worked for me. This opening scene, it was a nice little montage. It described the kind of relationship they had and how they were like shy at first, and they would shake hands or hug, and then how happy she was when they finally did the deed. And the fact of her like checking her phone like every 5 seconds, like that's something that's really relatable, and like the giddiness you have when you first join the relationship was really relatable, and how obsessed she was and upset that he wasn't returning her text. Like that was something really relatable. So yeah, this whole opening stuff, it actually did really work for me. But I will say, in regards to, I know we'll get to this later, but Alyssa already touched on how she didn't really like the reveal that Josh was one of the the bad guys. I agree, and I said this last week that I really hoped that they wouldn't go in this direction, because it is too much similar to what Alyssa said about Jen needing a win. To me, it's more cliche. It's the more cliche, obvious way to run. And I thought it would have been really more unique and interesting had they not gone that way. Had they come up with a different reason for Josh not texting her back. Like, I was actually considering perhaps he was abducted, which would have been more interesting to me. But anyway, I did enjoy this opening scene.
I just wanted to point out what you said about how relatable it is that she kept wanting to look at her phone. And that happens all throughout the episode, not just the opening montage. It was too relatable. I wish I could say I've never had that experience before, but yeah, it hurt a little bit like watching the scene. But yeah, I think it was effective though, as getting across like what she's going through, not just in the opening sequence, but all throughout the episode.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of a bit of that bit of Swingers, which we even kind of hit on a little bit again. The whole "do you call, do you not call? What is overdoing that?" I thought that was kind of perfectly played out, and you're right. The way that she's just the phone's right there, doing yoga, checking things, looking, that frustration of do I think was kind of beautifully done. And in the midst of this, I think we actually might get a hint of where we may have our finale setup location. As Nikki does mention that Jen has been nominated as Lawyer of the Year. Is it a gala?
Female Lawyer of the Year?
Female Lawyer of the Year, yes. And she asked, is there going to be a gala? Can we dress up? And, if we are expecting some other lawyer from a different city to maybe have a reason for these people to come together, this would be a good location for that to happen. So that's my throw out, is some part of this finale is going to end up at this particular gala. So maybe I think throughout all of this weekend of frustration for Jen, we get, I don't know, a good news call in a way, at least a distraction, that something's gone up with Emil Blonsky's inhibitor, and the parole officer has to go check it out. And of course, if you're going to go check out the abomination, it's kind of nice to have a Hulk around with you. The fact that it's also the abomination's lawyer, it kind of ties everything all up together. So this is, of course, where most of the rest of the episode takes place, is at Summer Twilights, is I believe the name that was on the gate, Emil Blonsky's little meditative retreat. Let's start things off with you there, Mark. What did you think of our kind of setup here, our meeting of Blonsky, and I don't know, do you think that he actually changed into the abomination or not? Because if you've got to think, this is the post-Josh thing. If he got anywhere with the blood, I don't know. To me, there's a lot of interesting ways you can read many of these scenes kind of both ways, depending on intention. But what did you think of just the initial setup and what was going on here with Blonsky?
I was surprised that they brought him back. I actually thought they would move on from him. And honestly, I don't know if we needed him back, but yeah, it was. It did make me wonder when the dude checked his thing that there must be more to it, like than just. I mean, it could be as simple as they needed a reason for that plot of the episode to exist. So I'm willing to accept that possibility, or maybe that this signaling that. If not, he's turned into an abomination. I was actually thinking, perhaps something was going on beyond his knowledge. Maybe someone else was trying to trigger him, or something. But that electric fence thing, that kind of seemed like a bullshit excuse to me. But I could be wrong. Maybe that's all there was to it. But yeah.
But it's his favorite chicken. So I mean, I think that's kind of interesting. I agree with you. I wasn't sure we were going back to Blonsky, and Alyssa, I also have to agree with you. I think he is sounding very much like Korg there. Oh, it's okay. I just think that maybe you need to look inside yourself. And I'm sorry, my New Zealand accent's probably horrible. But yeah, Alyssa, what did you think of our kind of setup here? And do you believe where Blonsky's coming from?
I took it at face value. I took it as there was, as Mark suggested that there was just a reason to get She-Hulk there so we can have the episode there and nothing more than that. And he really it didn't turn into the Abomination. That's all there was to it. If they reveal later that he really did turn into the Abomination, then I won't be shocked. I mean, I think that's a very reasonable explanation as well. I think that's very plausible. I could see how the electric fence the electric fence excuse could sound a little sketchy. I took it as face value though. So that's just how I read it until it's proven otherwise. And if it's proven otherwise, then I won't, I'll accept that too. That would make sense as well. But as far as seeing Emil Blonsky again, I love Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky and love how he's portraying him this year. I love the Korg impression he's doing. And I think this is going to be a reoccurring character. And I'm here for it. They can bring him back anytime as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, again, while there's an expectation that the Abomination is going to be the villain, and certainly there would be a certain enjoyment of seeing, Tim Roth kind of getting into the down and dirty of it all with that. There is something I really like about this reversal, and I do want to believe that he's really coming from the right space. I do have to mention that we never see any of his 7 wives or soulmates during this episode.
That surprised me, actually. Like, when he was talking about having a group meeting, I was expecting it to be all women, like, going by his backstory, but it was all men, and that threw me off.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right, Alyssa. I think they've set things up where you want to believe this story, but if it ends up being deeper and things are twisted and there's a little more of these connections, we're going to go with it. I mean, I think it kind of, I'm good with him either way, because you're right. I like Tim Roth, but part of me wants to be surprised and have it not be your typical villain type move, I guess. All right. So in the midst of this, we get our first new D-listers introduction. Manbull and the Eagle, El Alguilar, just taking out the car, giving a great excuse of why Jen has to stay for the episode, because you got to wait for the tow truck to show up. But yeah, really start to get a lot of the feel of what's going on and proof, at least, that Blonsky is trying to teach people a way to work through their aggressions and these issues. What did you think of our first two D-listers here, Mark? The Eagle and what did I say? The Matador. He's not a Matador. Swashbuckler. He says it like it's a real job.
So here's where I get negative. I didn't care about these characters. I thought this was a very contrived way to have a plot where she's stuck at the farm, and when they smash into her car, I'm like, so this is where we're going. And I just had no interest in them. I didn't particularly find them funny. And I just got to point out, like, for the first 4 episodes or so, like, we really reversed positions, you and I there.
I know.
I kept saying, like, I don't find this funny, and I was like, this is hilarious. So I guess it just goes to show the sense of humor and how different it is, because I was not here for this one. But that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I appreciate the fact that we kind of are coming at 2 different directions on this. As I said, it keeps things interesting. But I know who's on my side. Alyssa, what did you think of our people here?
I guess I'm kind of a combination of both of your sense of humors, because I also like the first 4 episodes, and I like this one too, and I like that other one that Mark hated. So although I like this one better. Which one was that? It was episode 5, I think. I do like this one.
Yeah, the one where Titania took her to court. That's the worst one.
So I kind of like all of them. I do think I would probably lean toward the beginning of the season. Episode 3 is still my favorite, but In any case, as far as these two characters, yeah, no, I really enjoyed. Well, first of all, it was relatable. Another relatable thing is that you have to wait half the day for the tow truck to come. I've also been there, so very realistic. I definitely bought that, and no, I really enjoyed these two characters and their back and forth. I kind of enjoyed them even more once we get into the whole circle, the whole group, a little bit later, more so than when we first see them. But yeah, I still enjoyed them here as well. Yeah, and I do like. I think it was maybe later on when he said something like Spanish. You know, that's not a thing. And he was like, "You've never heard of Spain?" I think that was a little later on, but
that was later on. That's in the group meeting. But yeah, again, I don't know. Is that the low hanging fruit? Is, well, we make them dumb, and then they're goofy, and then we can relate to them or accept their frailties. You're right. I think, Mark, sometimes it's the sitcom thing, because I'm not really tending to be a big sitcom person. And I think depending on the approach of sitcoms is whether it's going to appeal to me or not. And I think that's just, kind of like where are you willing to give them room in their comedy. But yeah, I wanted to mention here, Desiree here in the chat mentioning, want to trust Blonsky, but the whole setup with them kind of made me iffy. Don't know if it's just because the show has made me paranoid that everyone is out to get our girl. I think that's beautifully put. I was just thinking of, like, I kind of suspect everyone at this point. And in fact, I think that may lead into a nice shift of pace for Marvel. Maybe I want to touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, so this is basically our introduction of our D-lists, their troubles, Jen trying to get away because all she wants to do is try and get this text from Josh. I did love Blonsky kind of teasing her right there. Oh, you got a text. I did? Oh, yeah. Just like, no. But we get our tour. We get our nice little thing. Basically, we end up at our big group meeting, which is, I think, where we get all of our nice breakthroughs and our other kind of big reveal, which, like you're mentioning there, Desiree, you can kind of take either way when the wrecker comes in. So, yeah, Alyssa, what did you think of our group introduction, or is there anything in between that that I didn't touch on that you wanted to hit?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything in between. Yeah, I don't know. When we first see the group, I'm just like, want to see where they're going with this. I didn't recognize any of the characters. I don't know if there were references to any comic book characters or not, but I wondered if the guy who thinks he's a vampire is a vampire or not, since we know Blade is coming and vampires are going to be a thing in the MCU. Sure. And we got the Werewolf by Night thing coming out in a couple days. I don't know where or if vampires will be in that. So I did wonder. I did think the porcupine suit guy was pretty funny. The suit just looked really ridiculous. Yeah, and this is once we get more into the group, that's when I start really enjoying all of their interactions. That's where I just thought the comic timing really worked well. And yes, it's a little sitcom-y, it's a little tropey, it's a little like things that I've seen before. But when comic timing really works, when there's a lot of good interplay in between actors and characters, I really will always enjoy that. So I thought that once we really get into this group, I really like the interplay between all the characters.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think it is the back and forth that mostly through this episode that really worked for me. And yeah, again, looking at some other serious D-listers, Saracen and Porcupine, it was great. Twitter was alight with old comic book covers of Man-Bull versus Daredevil and the Eagle versus, what was the one I saw? Power Man and Iron Fist. But yes, if Rob was here from Smirking Guns, he would be pulling comics out and talking about where all of these people came from. Heads up, he will join us next week, so maybe he'll get to share some of that with us. But Mark, what did you think of our group bit? I know this is a little tropish, as you said from the top, but How did you think this was handled?
Well, first of all, there is something that in between I did want to touch on is the long. It felt. I guess it wasn't long, but it felt very long scenes of Jennifer wandering around trying to get a signal. I hated that. Like, to me, it felt like it dragged on for way too long. I'm like, really? So this is what we're spending most of the time? Because they already hit the point, I think, fairly well how desperate she was. And although I did appreciate that joke that Alyssa brought up of of Blonsky having fun with her, I felt like they dragged it, especially how they had like the text where it said, what was it, no signal or no reception, whatever it said.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't know, to me, that was like wasted air. Like, it felt like it was 5 minutes long, but it was probably more like 30 seconds.
I can't disagree with you on that one. It is not that long on second viewing. It moves a little bit faster than on the first one. But yeah, it was like, and also living in LA, I'm like, oh, there's the Glendale Gardens. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, they're up there off of Las Virgenes there where they're shooting that. I recognize that highlight. So that was kind of funny for me. But yeah, I can't disagree that was maybe a little unnecessary.
I do disagree, actually, because that plays into, as I said, just how relatable it is, and just how, like, I don't know, painful it is. I just thought, I mean, maybe they could have cut it and we would have been fine, but to me, it was still, I still felt it. So
Sure.
I seriously have been in situations like that where unfortunately I have wanted to check the phone all the time and not being able to get service and being really frustrated by that. So I kind of appreciated it, and I didn't think it was that long. And as you said in the second viewing, it really isn't that long. So I was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, part of why I might not have been on board with it is just because I wasn't really on board with this whole setup of her having to wait for the car. And it may be related, but it's just something about it was too sitcom trippish for me. It's like they're obviously doing it so they can have these silly scenes with them at this group meeting. But you mentioned the wrecker. Are we gonna talk about him now, or you
That was exactly where I was going in next. So yeah, Mark, go right ahead.
So I was just gonna say this really frustrated me because the whole entire time I'm just thinking, why the fuck doesn't she ask who paid him to attack her? Or why did he attack her? Why doesn't she ever ask him that question? Well, the answer is because of the plot, I guess. They don't want her to find out yet. But it was frustrating me the entire time he was there. And then when he was like, oh, yes, and when he started like to be her friend later on, I kept thinking to myself, like, what if he's there for her blood? What if he's there for the Abomination's blood? Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't trust him, and I felt like his inclusion was weird, and I just didn't like the fact that she was kind of not asking him any questions about the attack. I did like how she turned into Hulk and tried to attack him at first. Like that was cool. As I said, I didn't totally hate this episode, and I did like the way they broke the fourth wall. It's like, you probably don't remember this guy. I'm like, you're right, I don't. And let's do another previously on. So that thing I did appreciate. Like, I thought that was funny, but I was just frustrated with his with the fact she never actually asked him any questions.
Yeah, that the thought did occur to me, oh, why isn't she asking him? But then I just brushed it off as, well, she has absolutely no reason to think there's some kind of conspiracy with people going to steal her blood. She has no clue about any of that. She just brushed it off as a bunch of dudes trying to attack her to show off how cool they are or whatever. Like, she's just not even thinking about that. So I just brushed it off as that and had no problem with it.
I know she didn't know about the blood, but I still think she might want to see, like, what's up, what's the deal with you?
Yeah, but she wouldn't necessarily know who sent you. Like, she wouldn't necessarily think that anyone sent them or anything like that.
I was going to say that was covered in the brief time drop when he was like, I'd like to explain it to you. And the next thing he's sitting down going, so I decide instead of channeling my anger off of attacking you, I should be looking in on myself. So you're very right. They did very much kind of poo-poo any questions.
And here's the thing too. Like, even if she didn't know, like, he's aware, and if he's genuine about like making peace with her, why doesn't he fucking tell her this stuff? So I don't know.
Genuine about it. Yeah, you may be right that he's there to get her blood or whatever. He may not be genuine, but I don't have any. And I actually love what Desiree Garcia says in the chat, that I think she dismissed it as men attacking helpless woman, and him apologizing and her obsessing over her insecurities just made it go away in her brain. And I buy that. I really do. But I do think it's a definite possibility that he's still up to no good, and he was still planted there to get blood or whatever. That's still possible.
Well, and I think this also sort of gives them that playroom to, is Blonsky behind this or not? I mean, Saracen does mention, maybe when she first starts opening up about Josh, he was like, well, maybe he was there to get your blood, which you're expecting a vampire to do, and they kind of brush it off. Well, as one of them says, look, not everyone's like your dad.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up that line because I really liked that line. I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
But my take on it is, I don't think Blonsky's involved in any way. I definitely take at face value. I think he is this self-help guru Korg character now. And the vampire, I don't think he was aware of it, but I think that was just a clever way of slipping it in. Because and it goes with this theme of being obsessed with vampires. But when he said that, it was like, oh, maybe you just wanted your blood. I'm like, exactly, he's right. So I think that was just a clever way of the show to slip that in, where he was thinking it was just a silly vampire statement, but it actually turned out to be true.
No, and I'm with you on that. I think that all of that, and that is the kind of fun about this, where they can kind of do these little drops of things. Desiree is also mentioning had to get her to manipulate her to delete Josh's number. So yeah, you can read Wrecker's kind of motivation either way. Do you take it at face value? Is he hiding something? The fact that he does know something but not volunteering that information, I think, is just a standard drama comedy trope. Is, oh, they know things, but unless you ask them, they're like, oh, well, that's right, I should tell you about this information. I think they kind of lean in on that a little bit. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was like, I stacked those when she gets thrown into the chairs. That's exactly what would happen in a group meeting, folks. If you've ever seen one. But yeah, I was going to say, with the whole Josh story, this is, again, the swingers connection, all of it, what's universal. What do you write after your post-coital rough zone? You've connected, you've had that thing. Who wants to talk? Do you call? What do you say? And I love how very much like a group listening to this, you wrote what? Oh, man, that is both tropish and it's, I don't even remember the word that he used. Trashy and cliche, or something like that. Oh, no, that's just thirsty. Oh, you're begging out. I love the kind of group dynamic there on dealing in, because that is such sort of a universal bit, and somewhere I think everybody can kind of bond together when you like someone and things just don't work the way that you want them to, and you don't know what to do. So that was kind of my favorite part on this, and also just the honest bit of Jen kind of looking in about the balance of how she deals with inner Jen and She-Hulk, and the reality of, what if you could look like that amazing person all the time? Are you cheating yourself? Because that's not like the real you, but it is you. It was just a really interesting kind of bit of discussion there. So, Alyssa, what did you think of the Josh bit, the group dealing with Josh, and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, Josh is probably the bad guy. But even putting that aside, I still liked, some of the things that you mentioned were like, oh no, that's so cliche. What are you doing? Yeah, this scene in a lot of ways, I think Mark mentions a little like sitcom-y, a little tropey, the whole group uh, thing. But again, for me, it is just the interplay between the characters when people have good chemistry. That it just worked so well for me, even if it is like not unlike things that I have seen before. But yeah, I did like, and then how she was of course at first really resistant to it. She's like, no, I'm just gonna stand over here and get my one bar see if I can get a text. And how she eventually settles into the group. I still didn't trust the wrecker, and I do agree with Mark in a sense that I don't think that she should have totally trusted him. um, I do understand why she wouldn't, grill him for questions, but I still don't think that she should have opened up to him in that way. So that I maybe had a little bit of trouble with, but overall with the whole group and the way that she just kind of settles in and just ends up like spilling all of her beans and how they react to her, I did enjoy that aspect of it.
Excellent, excellent. Mark, what about yourself? The
So,
bearing of the She-Hulk soul.
you mentioned before all the characters and how the from the comics, and I could tell that they were characters from the comics because they did feel like empty, like they were just there. They were just there to be for people who read the comics to be like, oh, remember that guy? Oh, that's that guy. That's that guy. And since I don't recognize any of them, I don't care. But I will say I did like this scene. I did agree with Alyssa on the comedic timing and the camaraderie and the way they played off each other. I think it did work for the scene. As I said, I didn't totally hate the episode. um, and I did find a lot of the specifics in there funny, like when the vampire dude was like, "Maybe you want your blood." That was a good line. And when the two of them, I can't remember what the porcupine guy said, but he said something like interjected in there that I thought was hilarious. So yeah, there was a good interplay in there that I did find funny, but like so that was yeah. So the scene itself was funny, but overall, I felt like I didn't really care about any of these characters or didn't think that we needed this, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, and of course they were obviously able to use the things they learned in the group for her to find a way to move forward, and that she can't be responsible for other people's choices, and rejection is hurting, and all those things. But the fact that their first impression is we're gonna go kill Josh has to be of my favorite bit, because that's exactly it's like, oh no, this is dead now. He's made an enemy of all of us.
Was it Blonsky who spoke up, or was it? I can't remember who spoke up and said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't try to solve everything with violence. She's hurting. Let's feel her pain." So that I thought was nice. I thought that was an apt. I can't remember.
Interestingly enough, I believe that was Wrecker.
Was it the record? Yeah,
That
maybe
might have
Wrecker
done
is
that.
trying to protect Josh.
Well, Desiree does point out in chat a few things that keeps making is, yeah, it was Wrecker who told him not to kick Josh's ass.
Yeah.
Wrecker was the first one that suggested that maybe he ghosted you and also erased the number as a way to kind of covering up connections and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. The show does start to get you very paranoid about everybody's choices are suspect.
Well, I'm going.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm not. See, I'm still not super suspect of Blonsky, but definitely Wrecker. I think he's up to no good for sure. Like, I don't trust that guy at all.
Sure.
I do think she trusted him too easily too.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And when, I think it was he was spearheading the thing to talk her into turning back into Jen from the She-Hulk, and so I was half expecting him to break out a needle and go as soon as she turned into Jen.
Yeah. Well, and that would be reasonable until we find out later on. Obviously, if anything, he would be involved in cleanup duty.
Yeah.
How does he know that she's here at the retreat? We'll see. The same reason that Josh knew that she was at the wedding and Titania knew that she was at the wedding is because the plot needs this to happen. But I think it does. The reason that maybe she was willing to dismiss her positions is because he was connected to this larger group, and thus would have to think, hey, he's been here for a while, must be moving on, by association. I think might be a reason why she'd be a little less suspect of him than us paranoid people are.
Oh, I just wanted to just throw in there too. I had to respond to something Mark said about not really caring about these characters, and they just seem like oh, they're from the comics. I had no idea whether these people were in comics or not. I didn't necessarily assume that they were. Of course they are, because nobody in Marvel is not from the comics. But I still enjoyed these characters. Like I still, cared about them as much as you can care about, minor characters who are only in there for, one episode. And yeah, so I didn't necessarily know whether or not they were from the comics, but they still worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you're right. There's no depth to them. They are pretty much what they show. And that's, in a half-hour comedy episode, of which they're in half of it, that's about all the time that you have to play with. But yeah, I think it's how they are able to fill in we need these types of characters. What will the audience go, to? And I think that drives them very well. So all wraps up. Jen feels better, hurting for a yurtin. I don't believe that she actually said that. And we do get a nice group shot of the support of the group and Jen being herself, and makes us all feel really good. We do get a fun little cameo at the end for all of you comic nerds in the background. The tow truck that does come and pick Jen up is Dan Slott's towing, with Dan himself behind the driver's seat. Dan Slott, longtime Marvel Comics writer, and spearhead the 2004 run of She-Hulk that focused on her being a superhuman lawyer. So he is kind of the one behind, the visionary behind this interpretation of She-Hulk and everything. And he got to do a little cameo at the end as the tow truck driver. So that was kind of fun. So Josh, we have to say the thing. Josh deserves to die, hopefully will. Something horrible will happen to him. Definitely did the whole thing just to get her blood. We'll just say that she was asleep and drunk and didn't feel the needle, I guess, is how we'll cover that. He seems to have gotten the blood and ready to... Now, do you think he was Hulk King, or he was texting to Hulk King? Those emojis at the end.
Texting too.
Texting. Okay. Yeah, that's how I read that.
Cool. Which was funny, because if we're thinking that this is to gain the power and transform, that is what Jen refers to it as, hulking out to the Hulk King.
Where did he get those emojis? How does his phone come with those emojis?
Dude, I have no emojis on my phone. I don't know where people get all of the emojis they use. So yeah, that's a fair question.
That he made just for that occasion that he was waiting to use when he got her blood. I mean, what? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Eric's got in the chat. What was that yurtin she was hurting for? The sweat yurt that she went in at the end. It's like a sweat lodge, only in a yurt, because they can make that rhyme with something goofier at the end. I don't know why. Yurts are pretty cool, though. Now, I did want to kind of hit on one little point with all of the doxing and the hunting and what was going, the complications that Jen has been going through. The one thing that this show is starting to really show up is the necessity for a secret identity. And that's not something that Marvel has actually dealt with much before. Iron Man plainly sets out. Thor is himself. Captain America, everybody knows. A lot of these initial heroes, they were just doing what they do. There was no reason to be anything else. Or if you're Tony Stark, you have the money to be able to have your security and everything. It was one of the things that in Spider-Man kind of started to frustrate me, is that like everyone knew Spider-Man's identity, And comics wise, growing up, even all the cartoons, that was the one thing that he had to himself. He was like the only person that knew that he was both. I mean, outside of MJ after a while. Um, and I'm wondering if they're starting to set up some of the ground reasons that, hey, maybe people shouldn't know who you are if you're a hero, because then they can come after your blood and things. So I don't know. Did you guys think about any of that stuff, or do you think that could be helping move into that? It's obvious after the Spider-Man movie, no one knows who Spider-Man is. They can sort of reset that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't know who Spider-Man was until the post-credit scene. Was it Far From Home? Yeah.
Far From Home, yeah.
So, I mean, for most of Spider-Man's existence in the MCU, people don't know that he's Peter Parker. So he still kind of has that from the comics. I don't know. I mean, I think, yeah, but you're right. Most of the Marvel characters, like I think everybody knows Bruce Banner is the Hulk, and I don't know. I guess I didn't really think much of that at all. I think that, I think for most of the Marvel characters, it worked well for them. Like they're just themselves, and if you can turn into a Hulk, it doesn't really matter if people know who you are, because you can just turn into a Hulk. I guess Miss Marvel would be another one who has a secret identity, or her family knows, but like the world at large.
Sure.
But yeah, most of them are just kind of themselves, and I think that that would be hard for Jen to be She-Hulk lawyer, which is what they wanted to hire there, was the She-Hulk lawyer, and then when if she was just She-Hulk and pretending that she wasn't Jim Walters, then people would be like, "Wait, what is her qualifications? Why did She-Hulk go to law school?" Like, it wouldn't. I don't think it would really work. So she kind of has to be both.
Yeah. No. And I completely agree. I'm just thinking more of the other person. No, one of the other established Marvel heroes that has a secret identity, of course, is Matt Murdock, who hopefully we will see soon. But yeah, any thoughts there, Mark?
No, I never got any vibe that they were trying to say anything about secret identities.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that they probably won't go in that direction. I think it's more of the making Jen the Charlie Brown character. I guess, where everything bad happens to her. But yeah, I mean, I guess I already talked about the Josh thing and how I really, really didn't like this. This is the main thing that brought the episode down for me, because I was really, really hoping they wouldn't go in this direction. And I'm kind of bummed that they did, to be honest. But we'll see, because now they don't even need to use that was it not antimantium? Whatever vibranium was it? Vibranium?
Yeah, if that's what it was, yeah, whatever super needle they were putting together.
But yeah, and I've heard speculation. Someone was speculating that, wondering whether or not Josh actually got her blood, or was just setting her up because to get the blood. But I thought it was pretty obvious from the emojis that he did. I mean, I could buy that she could sleep through it, and I think that was his whole plan all along. Obviously, was to sleep with her so she catch her off guard and take her blood. And once you got it, there's no reason to have any more contact.
Yeah. No. I agree with you completely there. I think that's it. Well, any other kind of thoughts on the episode, or things that you want to hit on? Any little secrets I've missed?
No.
Excellent. Did want to just touch a couple of other little side things from the Marvel universe. I don't know if anybody had heard anything. Blade's director just left the project. That's set to come out next November, I think. So they were getting ready to shoot that. So good opportunity for a new director to step in, someone young that can just fill in those shoes. Was talking with Desiree over Twitter the other day, earlier today. And thought that a good horror director, a good indie horror director, would be someone the fun to step into the shoes there, kind of like lean into that genre. What do you guys think of Blade? Any hopes or expectations on that?
I didn't realize it was coming out that so soon. I thought that was one of those movies that still didn't have a release date on it yet. I didn't know that it was supposed to come out next November.
At least on one of the polls, that was one of where they were aiming for. But yeah, this could possibly move it unless they can really just find a director that can take the existing script and story and just, go with that.
I will be perfectly honest. Blade is probably the things that I'm least interested in. I've never even seen the Wesley Snipes movie. I never was interested in the comics. I'm never interested in anything vampires. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about this. So I will.
Yeah. Honestly, like I feel the same way about Blade. And honestly, I used to get irritated when people referred to the Wesley Snipes movie as a superhero movie. I don't think it was. This could have been a comic book character who was a superhero in the comic books, but the movies themselves were just stereotypical action horror movies. I felt I didn't think they resemble superhero movies at all. So, yeah, I mean, I'll check it out, and I'm somewhat curious to see what they'll do with it, but it is one of the projects I am least interested in.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's the attachment of Mahershala Ali as Blade. He's awesome. So I'm like, look, I will watch what he does because he always surprises me and always impresses me with.
Here's the question: if Luke Cage appears in the MCU, is this going to break the MCU? Because Mahershala Ali was already played a villain on Luke Cage.
No comment. I have no problem. Well, but that actually does lead kind of interesting into ours because we may be having the replacement of another MCU actor, of course, with the passing of William Hurt. Thunderbolt Ross is no longer in the picture, but we have a Thunderbolts movie coming out in 2 years, I believe, in 24, I think. Rumor going around, Harrison Ford being looked at to take over as Thunderbolt Ross.
I don't see that.
No.
He's
got the same haircut. I mean, I think
has Harrison Ford ever played like a villainous character or an anti-hero like that?
I remember seeing one like thriller with Michelle Pfeiffer where he played like an evil husband that was trying to kill her. But
What Lies Beneath? Written by Agent Coulson himself, Clark Gregg.
Yeah.
Interesting little MCU tie-in there.
I don't see that. I liked your idea of what was Sam Elliott who played
Sam Elliott, yeah.
Sam Elliott.
I really think that's where they should go.
And the other Hulk movie, yeah. I would rather do that than Harrison Ford.
Like Harrison Ford had a great career. He's in a lot of great movies, but now he's kind of one of those older actors that just checked out.
Well, and to be honest, yeah, at 80, I know they just finished Indiana Jones and everything, and they did some de-aging and all sorts of stuff, which is, I think, going to hopefully make that work. But look, Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel looked great until he moved, and then it was 80-year-old man move, and there's no way of there's no way of getting that any direction. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think Sam Elliott would be a better call, personally.
Yeah.
Armor Wars, the Don Cheadle Disney Plus series, now being retooled as a movie.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know.
They felt that was a better way to tell that story. Is it they didn't have enough story for a series, or they just thought that this was big enough where they could really just pump it up, tighten it, and add the effects and do it all big?
I hadn't heard that, and I like that because that was one of the shows I was least looking forward to. I'm like, I don't know, do I need to watch this whole 6 to 8 episode series about? That sounds like it would be a better movie to me, so I like this move.
Right, and of course the other big news, and I know Rob's gonna hate that I'm throwing this out there because he really wants to talk about it, and we might end up doing some little video to dive in a little bit more. Deadpool 3 announced, with Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine.
So that's official?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. They've put it out and everything.
Oh, I saw a thumbnail on a YouTube video that said that, and but those same kind of channels always have these oh, Fantastic Four. And then you click on it, and it's like, so I heard this rumor that they might be announcing the Fantastic Four in 2 months or something. And so, like, when I see those thumbnails, I just kind of dismiss them. So I didn't know that it was actually a legit thing that's actually.
Ryan Reynolds put out a whole great video. If you haven't seen it, go look it up for the Deadpool 3 announcement with Ryan Reynolds. It's the guy's freaking genius at self-promotion is all I have to say. And you can see that he and Hugh are just, the idea of doing this is just going to be fun for them. So I know there's always the questions of, we're bringing in the MCU. How does this work? What about Logan? Does this mean that Wolverine? Look, folks, multiverse. Just look at it. Multiverse. It's Deadpool. It's not, just take it as its own thing. And if they tie it in, great. If not, just have a good time, man.
I'm sure they'll make some like fourth wall breaking joke about that.
Well, also, the timeline of the X-Men, Fox X-Men universe is a complete mess anyway.
Yes.
Follow with Logan or anything, because they never follow with each other anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, I always took Logan itself as kind of an alternate future or alternate reality because it doesn't really fit in with anything else either, but it doesn't have to. Like,
and Logan and the New Mutants, it kind of implies that they're the same kids from Logan, and it's like, what is that taking place in that future? It's
no, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, just let it it's going to be its thing. This is coming out between Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, and the release dates at the moment where they put it out. So it's going to be in the middle of the Kang saga. There's going to be multiverse stuff going on with all the variances you have with Loki and things like that. I think there's a lot of reasons to just allow this to be a one-off type of thing.
Watched a video recently that stated that all the actors who played the X-Men in the other films, the more recent films, have a contract through to 2025. And so that if Marvel wants to do a reboot and recast, they have to wait until then in order to do a new X-Men. So that might be while they're waiting. And in the meantime, they can do this thing with Hugh Jackman.
And honestly, that's fine. Wait a while, let it establish. I mean, honestly, I think Secret Wars is the place where you can reestablish a lot of things and just collapse the multiverse after that. And then all these things are now here in the world and you can build from there. Plus, I think you can get Rogue actually getting her superpowers from Ms. Marvel. And I think you can introduce the black suit from Spider-Man there too, and be able to branch off everything. So that's kind of my hope. If they wait till that, they've got tons of stories, folks. They have tons of stories to tell between now and then. We can wait on the X-Men to be done right. In my humble opinion. So yeah, I think that's all that I had. The only last thing that I would throw out as a recommendation is really enjoying Andor. This last episode was by far my favorite. I love the focus on political intrigue. Do more of that. The less lightsabers I see, the happier I'm going to be, I think.
I will say that the most recent episode has been more hopeful. It is by far my favorite. I pretty much hated the first three. I thought they were boring as fuck, and I was not invested in any of the characters. I'm like, why am I watching him being chased by some second-rate Empire knockoff that's just a security team? Like, why do I care about that? Why do I care about these flashbacks? Why do I care about this? Any of this? It has nothing to do with the rebellion, has nothing to do with the Empire. And now, the fourth episode, we're finally getting that connection, and we're seeing Mon Mothma. I was like, okay, maybe I could end up liking this show after all. So the fourth episode, the recent one to me, was by far my favorite because I didn't like the first three at all, but I did like the newest one.
I still haven't watched. I only watched the first episode so far. I still haven't had a chance. It's been a very busy week, and that first episode.
Yeah. No, the first two are a bit of a slog. I'm going to tell you that. First two are making you like, why do I care about this person? I think the third one plays those off well, but yeah, by the fourth, you realize the reason that you're watching this is because of Stellan Skarsgård. He's freaking amazing in this.
I will say, for me, it was the first three. I agree with you about can never pronounce it. Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was fantastic in this last episode.
Excellent. All right. Well, then we don't need to go into too much for no spoiler reviews on that. We'll have some other discussion, I'm sure, at some point in the future. But that will wrap us up for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking some time out and hanging out with us. Desiree joining us from the very beginning today. Eric Scott able to jump in halfway through. My dearest wife joining in about halfway through the chat, sweetheart. Thanks for always jumping in. She's so nice. She treats me so well. And I think that'll be it. Let's tell everybody what you're doing and where people can find you. Alyssa, what you up to these days?
I am over on OPG's reviews. I'm reviewing Star Trek Lower Decks weekly. I loved this week's episode. If you're a Star Trek fan, you have to watch this week's episode, especially if you're a fan of Deep Space Nine specifically. And I did my review for that. I'm doing other Star Trek related stuff. And House of the Dragon, I'm of course joining these two gentlemen every Monday. Although I guess I'm not going to be here next Monday. I think we've got a different lineup, but most Monday will be there. And I also have my House of the Dragon mid-season review plus predictions video out. If you are into House of the Dragon, you should check that out. So come and join me over on Alyssa Jean's reviews.
Excellent. And Mark, what about yourself? What are the things you're doing?
Oh, so yes, I also just dropped my review for the latest episode of Lower Decks. Absolutely, again, loved it. I think it's beyond Deep Space Nine nostalgia, which is a good episode overall. But the Deep Space Nine nostalgia certainly helps. Can't go wrong with that. But anyway, and also, of course, doing House of the Dragon discussions every Monday night, and Lord of the Rings of Power, do reviews for that mediocre show as well. And I got an announcement. I was actually just recording my announcement video. I was just about to air as soon as I get off that I will be doing something I haven't done in like 2 or 3 years. I think it's been that long. A solo live discussion video, just me myself. I haven't done that in like forever. I will be doing that this Saturday night at 10 Eastern time. I'm going to be mostly talking about my A Perfect Episode series, which is a little series I just finished up where I chose 10 of my favorite episodes and talked about them. And so I'll do a live discussion getting into spoiler-free discussions about these episodes. And you can join and name some of your, favorite or perfect episodes out there. So, and this, we're probably going to just talk about random shit too. But you can join me for that this Saturday night. And yes, check out Enchantment of Eternity for many more shenanigans.
Excellent. Definitely do that. So yeah, I'm Darren. This is D's Reviews. This is my place. We're here every Thursday night, at least for the next 2 weeks, talking She-Hulk, because there's only 2 episodes left after this, folks. Very exciting. Next week, Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews will be joining us as Mark has a thing that he's got to do, but Alyssa will be here as well. You can join us over. Yeah,
I was thinking about that. It's probably going to be the Daredevil episode. I'm probably going to miss the Daredevil episode, knowing my luck, but that's okay.
I think they're going to both be Daredevil episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll be there. Plus, you'll be able to get to do our sum up afterwards. So yeah. For sure. But yeah, and then of course on Mondays you can catch me over on Enchantment of Eternity. I can get those words out with Mark as we talk House of the Dragon. I believe this Monday we have Don Willie joining us.
Indeed.
Really excited to see Don again. So that should be a really fun discussion. Don is just encyclopedic knowledge of Westeros. So that should be a really, really fun discussion. And I appreciate the time jump they've done too. Hoping the old man dies soon. God, it just sounds so wrong of me to say, but it's true. It's true. Viserys has just taken up time. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live, for joining us in the archives, and we will catch you all next week. All right, take care now.